So how do you follow up a, a hugely successful game that reminds people that your development company exists and that created internet memes, put characters on the map, and caused some amount of I think completely unwarranted media outrage. Seriously, the Fox media outrage was completely unwarranted. You can't rape anyone in Mass Effect, first of all, as they claimed in one of their stories on it. Second of all, you can't Captain Kirk your way for the crew. Third of all, any nudity that comes from this game is seen in silhouette, and this goes for all three Mass Effect games. Is seen in silhouette, and all romance scenes are limited to one or two kisses and then a fade to black. So you see more actual sexual content on your average sitcom on the broadcast Fox network than you do in any of the sex scenes in this. If you see in an old James Bond, if you've seen a James Bond movie, that's with its PG-13 rating on all of them, that's as far as it goes in this M-rated series. Look, M. And there are no major retailers in the United States who will sell you these games if you're under 17. So, yeah. But anyway. So, yeah. That little rant about the outrage these games call. The outrage. That's just hypocritical on the Fox Corporation's part, given that their network is pretty much built on their broadcast TV network is pretty much built on sex and grotesque violence. That's what they push. So Fox News coming out and attacking the Mass Effect series makes them the biggest joke in the history of so-called journalism. But anyway, so how do you follow all that up? That you follow up something that makes people for you follow it up with a game that makes people forget that the first game existed, and that is the entry point into the series for most gamers. That re-entered me after I had put the series away and stopped thinking about it because my Xbox had red ringed of death. That convinced me to go back and buy the game a second time on buy the first game a second time on the Xbox 360. A game that convinced me to buy it again, to buy it and its sequel again on the Xbox 360. A game that if you see a meme about Mass Effect, chances are it's a screenshot from this game. A game that produces what I think are the most memorable science fiction characters in the history of gaming. Does that seem like a tall order? Yeah, it is. But with close to a 3-year development time that was uninterrupted, the team at BioWare delivered. They listened to the fans when they talked about the things that they found frustrating in the first game, and they improved or got rid of them. They went so far as to in a couple of interviews talk about the fans as co-makers of the game and co-writers of the story, because they left so many game options open. Make a game where it's where, despite the fact that you shrink the world, it feels more intense. The actual world size in this game is probably a third to half the size of what you have in the original Mass Effect. But oh boy. And it doesn't play for an hour longer than the original Mass Effect. Even with all its DLC. But oh boy. It is so focused and you are so connected to the characters, and there are so many different ways for this game to end. From everyone dying to everyone living and you being the ultimate space hero, that it just blows any other game in the science fiction RPG or science fiction shooter or science fiction genre period of video games just out of the water, in my opinion. And is it perfect? No. I'll get to what the problems are soon enough. But it is a textbook example of how to handle a second game in a series, and not only not alienate your fan base, but grow it exponentially, and yet still follow up on all the promises of the first game and have everything. I mean, it feels like every choice you make in the first game is reflected somehow. I didn't think the save import system, when they started bragging about the save import system, I didn't think it was going to be that great. I figured, oh, a few major things will be affected, but everything they're bragging about all your little side quests having some sort of impact, or being mentioned, or it changing the way people look at your character, all that's just a pipe dream. That'll take too much work. They'd have to record too much voice acting. No. Even if you don't like I've talked to people, even if they don't like the first game, they still replay it because everything you do in it is affected in this game. So they'll play it just to be a prequel to this, to set up so that they can hear the callbacks in this and change how everything is impacted. So, yeah. So, that's how you do a sequel to a game as great as Mass Effect. First thing you should know about this game is that it takes the series into a darker place, although by the end of it, if you do things right, it doesn't feel like a darker place, but it definitely ratchets up the threat. The game instantly starts off by just annihilating everything you know. Shepard is then forced to work with the rogue Black Ops / terrorist organization, Cerberus, which you encountered in the first game. They killed an NPC who you were helping in that game. They brutally killed him. You saw them conduct brutal experiments throughout the first game, and now they perfectly believably pull it off. That Shepard has to work with them because guess what? Even if you do 100%, and this is why I think some people underrate the Paragon Renegade system and why their complaints fall on deaf ears with me. Because even if you do everything perfectly in the first game, guess what? There are unforeseen consequences, and the galaxy is just unable or unwilling to be able to handle yeah, some of them come off as idiots for not being able to handle this new threat, but when you look at what, but as you get deeper into the game and you see how the first game impacted the galaxy, you get it. For what looks like an isolated threat that's only going after a few human colonies out on the fringes of space, they can't afford to be distracted, even if you made all the right choices. So Shepard is working with his enemy now, with his or her enemy now. In fact, these are the people that, if you choose one of the backgrounds for Shepard, one of the possible backgrounds for Shepard, murdered Shepard's entire squad just as an experiment, as part of an experiment on Thresher Malls. Yeah, so you have all that. The whole game revolves around you just getting ready for one mission. That's it. Your prep is just one mission. The game really boils down to just one mission. But here's what I think is brilliant about that. Any important military operation in human history has spent just as long or longer being prepped, and it to, that than it does actually being pulled off. D-Day actually was started being planned in early 1942. Yet we didn't get it until June the 6th, 1944. Think about that. And it takes a lot more people to put a soldier on the battlefield than it does soldiers on the battlefield. I think I once saw an estimate that it takes, like, between civilians and supply people and non-combat personnel in the military, it takes something like 17 people to put one soldier in the battlefield in the modern world. So, this game revolves around you gathering a team, and if you get the DLC, of 12 specialists. And you have to gain their trust. One of the huge things, and not only, but you also have a full crew on your new Normandy. And different ones of them have different feelings on working for Cerberus, and some of them are proud, some of them are to be working for this terrorist organization because they think they're standing for humanity. This organization, you get so into it, you get to see just how insidious this organization is, and it ends up coming off as more evil because you can end up being seduced by the power, and you get a choice at the end that where you can go along with their methods or not, and and you have the chance to turn the most loyal person to this group on server against them if you keep talking to her, and if you bring her on the final part of a final mission, and you make a certain choice there. It's and that's where this game lies in feeling so epic. Not only do you have the fallout from the previous game, but everything is told from the point of view of a character. For instance, the sterility plague that riddles the Krogan. You got a personal view of it with Rex and how it hurt the Krogan in the first game. Now you get a personal view of what type of people would make it, and it's not the type of people you would think through one of your squad mates in Mass Effect 2. You get you get to see the conflict within him, where he's not sure, or if where he feels that it was, where he basically he says it's the best solution for the galaxy, but what you get that he really means is that it was the lesser of all the evils that were on the table at the time. And you see that he worked, and you see that he worked hard to make sure that it did, it would keep the Krogan, it would do what he thought would keep the Krogan viable and make them able to somehow make peace with the Krogan somehow down the line. However, things don't play out as you think they would in real life. Yeah, what you think of in the lab or what projections you have from your intelligence reports don't adequately convey what's going to happen. And that will affect your views on it. And you're invited to come up to have your own views. Everything, every conversation has multiple paths in it. Every conversation you're invited to. Shepard is the perfect balance between having a personality or not. I compare Shepard to one of those action figures you had as a kid, which has a brief write-up on the back that tells you what their universe is and what the character's backstory is. But other than that, the action figure is a blank slate because that writing is actually pretty sparse, and you're left to fill in the blanks with your own mind. Here, it works great too. Like for instance, here that's exactly what they do with Shepard. He's not a complete, he or she is not a complete blank slate, but they are sparse enough that you can fill in your own morality and nowhere in your own thinking of why they say, why Shepard says what Shepard says, and makes the calls that Shepard does. And this game does the best job of showing that. It's just amazing. Even the tiny conversations you can have with your yeoman affect how you view this. I mean, my personal favorite for when I'm playing as heroic Shepard is to give him the colonist background, where his whole family was wiped out by slavers because the Alliance wasn't there to protect the colony. It wasn't considered important enough. And there, in my mind at least, that explains Shepard being willing to work with Surus, even if his unit was wiped out by them, because he saw that failure of protection firsthand. He or she saw that. Shepard knows that. And what that feels like to be the civilian in that thing, and he or she is going to break any rule or do anything in order to get that. Your returning squad members are great to see. They all have grown, and you learn so much more about them. Your relationships get so much deeper. One of the things that they corrected was the old game. If you talk to a squad member of the opposite gender enough in the old game, it tended to lock them in as a love interest, and it was hard, and you couldn't really get them out of that and go down a romantic path too quickly. However, this game you actually have to take steps to lock that in, and most of the characters do have romantic interests, but not all of them. It's not one of those games where anyone could be a romantic interest and they're all faceless. For instance, if it makes no sense for the character, like with a character like, say, Samara, they're off the table. And the heart of this game is the loyalty missions. That's what the fans call them. That's what the devs took to calling them. Basically, you earn the loyalty of your crew. You prove to them that you can be trusted. Every crew member has something personal or some problem that they need taken care of before they go on this mission. And completing these increases their chances of surviving the final mission. This is all about prepping your ship and prepping your crew so that they survive the final mission. And the first time I played this, I screwed up. I didn't do all the loyalty missions, and I didn't upgrade everyone on my ship, and I lost almost everyone. And the characters have such an impact on you throughout the game that you that you feel beat up, you that you feel it when they all die, and I just felt completely gutted by the end of the game the first time I tried it. But that just caused me to buckle down, go through, and play through the 35 hours or so of the game again. It just really pumped me, and have all the conversations with the characters. And here's the thing, the conversations are so written that even after playing this a dozen or so times, I don't get sick of going through the options in these same conversations. They just feel so natural, and the voice acting across the board is amazing. They hired an amazing cast that goes all the way from voice actors again voice actors who do a lot of video games again, and cartoons, like Brendan Keener as Garrus, to 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 veteran actors like Martin Sheen. And I have to admit, when I hear somebody like Martin Sheen is in a video game, I'm like, it's like having Kevin Spacey in like Call of Duty game. It's like my first reaction is to go, why? Because you know he doesn't play video games, so you know he doesn't have any. He doesn't probably have any idea what he's talking about when they give him all this sci-fi jargon. However, he really sells it. I can't see anyone else doing the Elusive Man the way he does. Even when you're telling him off, you still feel that he has an ace in the hole somewhere, and that he's not too worried. But you also see that he can be frustrated. He plays this. His voice makes this character come fully fleshed out, even further than the writing does, and from the first time, he's one of the first voices you hear in this game, and boy, does he deliver on every level that you would expect. It's just like, such a nuanced performance. And it's threatening and seductive at the same time, and you see that he doesn't have to use brute force. And early on they talk about how he didn't allow a control chip being put in Shepard's brain, and his story is that he was afraid that Shepard would not be able to make certain calls, and the calls wouldn't be Shepard's, and he needs Shepard, as Shepard is, in order to see it for this mission to stand a chance. But because of this performance and the way it's played, you get the idea that he just had more insidious means of manipulating Shepard. I mean, think about the team that he lines up. He gives Shepard a second in command who's extremely loyal to himself and Cerberus. And she has a very good personal reason for being this. The Cerberus has given her nothing but freedom that she could never have had without them. They are the key to her and her sister's freedom. And he's been very careful not to put her in charge of any of Cerberus's most shady projects, or to make it look like they were done by people he disapproved of without his knowledge. So she has a very positive view on Cerberus, but she's also very likable. So that's your second in command. That's your second in command. That's Shepard's second in command right there. Someone who's likable, and who I'm sure another thing that played in her favor were her looks and the fact that she does need help from Shepard. There is a sort of broken wing syndrome. There's one of the James Bond novels. M is doing a report on James Bond's pluses and deficits as an agent. He has all the pluses you would expect, but one of the things he puts in is that he has a broken wing syndrome, and that he can be blinded very easily by any woman who seems to need his help or protection to get out of a problem. And you feel like the Illusive Man has set this up with that. Further emphasizing that is the character of Jack, somebody who was experimented on essentially by a rogue agent of Cerberus, a rogue arm of Cerberus, that from her very childhood, who is very foul mouthed, and I've heard some people, and lots of people are off put, and a lot of the M rating, I think, comes from her absolutely foul language, but it's absolutely believable foul language for someone with her background, and that's why it doesn't bother me as much as it would in another character. So, what Jack has is a defense mechanism, and she is capable of altruism once Shepard gets through her shell. So, Jack is a person for Shepard to protect and help. Then the Illusive Man puts Shepard in a situation where he's put at odds with, it deliberately sets up a situation where the Illusive Man has to know Shepard will be put at odds with a former team member that, depending on how the last game was played, may or may not be a former love interest of Shepard's. So that further alienates Shepard. He then makes sure to show him only the things Cerberus is doing to protect humanity. And the rest of the team that he assembles are people who Shepard either acts as a mentor towards, or needs Shepard's help on some sort of quest for justice, something that Shepard can't turn down. Or are people who will stand by him no matter what. Like, for instance, he puts two old friends. He makes sure he puts two old friends. One of whom it may be one of Shepard's best friends. Another one is a potential love interest, is a potential romantic interest in Shepard. So he has them standing by him while he's on. All of this is a very carefully crafted form of psychological manipulation that goes much better than brute force, and is much more insidious. It just speaks to the Illusive Man and just how Cerberus works, and this game explores that expertly, because you can end up totally on his side without even really knowing it. Of course the player is going to start out hating this whole situation, but as the game goes on and as you become more and more attached to the people on your team, and the game is designed to do that, the less and less you want to rock the boat and mess things up. So the player and the character are both being put in the exact same position. That is brilliant, if you ask me. Just plain brilliant. And that is the main meat of the game. Sure, there are lots of side quests, and there are lots of things to do, and the lore is expanded, and you introduce great new characters who operate in moral gray areas. My favorite probably being Arya T'Loak, because she just operates in a complete gray area where in any other situation you call her a straight up villain, but then you see some of the other people around her and it's like, Wow. So, yeah. Yeah, so this game expertly explores that. And once you get everything together, and once you're ready to go on this one suicide mission that it's been building up to, boy, they deliver. Every single choice you make in the game has some sort of ramification. It can result in either the death of someone or them living. It can result in how successful your mission is. It can result in how much damage your ship takes. It just everything. You feel like everything builds up to this point, and things keep getting more and more intense. The music is perfect at this point. The voice acting comes together. The music comes together. The gameplay, the atmosphere, the enemies, everything. By this point, you feel. By this point, if you play it the way I tend to do, you feel like you feel like the odds are stacked against you, but you also feel like the ultimate space hero. And when you get to that end point, and and if you do it right and get everyone out there alive, everything comes together in the best climax for any video game I have ever played. It just blows everything else I've ever played away. It is just so addictive getting to that point. It just makes the game so addictive because you want to go back and replay it and do it all over again. And then it ends on the perfect cliffhanger into Game 3. It is just amazing. It so with all that being said, why isn't this game perfect? Well, there are a few things. First of all, they streamlined a lot of the RPG stuff, and I'm not against that per se, except that their streamlining resulted in it feeling more like a shooter with an upgrade system at times. Thankfully, one of the things they improved is that Paragon and Renegade points are now your reputation about whether people see you as nice or a rude guy or something or in between is now completely dependent on your conversation. So that's an improvement. However, there are now only 4 powers to upgrade. That's it. You're set with 4 powers and that's it, based on your character class. All your teammates have that. There are no more weapon upgrades to buy. You can't mod your weapons. Ammo is now a power that ammo powers are now just one of those powers, that biotic powers that you upgrade. So so once you upgrade them, you can't upgrade them anymore. The level cap has been halved down to 30, and I don't know why. Because by about 2/3 through the game, you will reach your maximum level cap. And guess what? Your maximum level cap, it does not give you enough points to upgrade all. You only have 4 powers, and yet your maximum level cap doesn't even give you enough points to upgrade all 4 of the powers. And replaying the game doesn't help. It'll still tell you that you're earning points, but importing an old file and doing that doesn't give you anything else. Doesn't give you any more points. So there is no way to get a fully upgraded character. Armor parts now affect you, and you now have more control over what your armor looks like. That is good. However, you can no longer choose the armor on your squad mates, so decking them out doesn't do a thing. You can't choose what ammo powers they're using, so you can't set them up to be a hitter for a different type of enemy, for being your clutch hitter like you could in Mass Effect 1. Now I will say this, their AI is massively improved. There are only a handful of times you will have to revive them with Metagel this time. They'll give you lots of warning if you find yourself going tunnel vision and getting flanked. They'll give you plenty of warning about dangers, and they'll do a good job covering you. I've taken out I routinely take out bosses in this game, and that have all sorts of little lower level enemies just charging me, and I don't even have to give them a command. They automatically cover me, and I'm not bothered by the little guys as I go in and take them out. Heavy weapons are a new addition that give you extra firepower in boss type battles, and boy, they are needed at some points in this game, so that's a plus. But the lack of any upgrades to your weapons may feel, and the lack of being able to deck out your characters any more than just giving them, say the most powerful weapon in the class of weapons that they're allowed to handle, and not even being able to change their ammo type other than selecting an upgrade that says squad ammo, which when you turn on your ammo power gives everyone the same ammo power, instead of giving people different ammo powers for when you're dealing with mixed groups of enemies, makes it all feel very shallow on that front. So their attempts to make it more accessible actually gutted it. Also, there is no exploration anymore, other than going to a planet. Edie will say she detects something. You'll find a signal. You'll shoot a probe down onto it, and that'll open up a mission on that planet. And it'll open up a mission only on this small avenue of the planet. And then there's the planet scanning. That's got to be the worst part of this game. There's one thing a lot of Mass Effect fans agree on, it's that planet scanning is the most boring thing ever. What it is you just have to scan planets for minerals and various things that deposits of minerals and various things that you need to upgrade your ship in order for it to survive the suicide mission. You need a lot of these minerals, so that means you spend hours and hours scanning planets, firing probes, and nothing happens. There's no sense of urgency. It just adds, I don't know, maybe 3 hours to the gameplay that doesn't need to be there. The first time you feel good about it because you get your crew out alive. The first time it's fine, but after you learn where the planets are with the rich mineral deposits and you scan them, it just becomes an exercise in pure tedium. I have a video on how to mod a save file on Mass Effect 2. All I can say is use the gibbed Mass Effect 2 save editor and just start out the game by giving yourself 500,000 of all minerals. Trust me, you'll thank me, because it just gets rid of so much tedium in the game. So yeah, but those are the bad points of the game. So the final score for Mass Effect 2 is 9 out of 10. It's just great. It's everything a great sequel should be, and it put the Mass Effect brand, and it very much established the Mass Effect brand as something that would continue and be important to BioWare and EA. More important to BioWare than EA, as it would turn out. As for the DLC, the must-owns are the 2 DLC characters, Kasumi and Zaid. You have to get them. They're not potential love interests or anything like that, and you just have a couple of conversations with them and have a loyalty mission for them, but they are fully voiced in the regular missions, and they do pop up in Mass Effect 3. So you'll want to get them, and they're both good characters, and they're fun characters voiced by good voice actors. So Kasumi and Zaid are in the must-own. Also, there's Lair of the Shadow Broker, which gives Liara a bigger role in the game than just a cameo. and it sets up something very important for Game 3. And then there's the Arrival DLC that you absolutely must own, or you pretty much won't understand where Shepard starts out in Mass Effect 3. Now, on the maybe category, you have Firewalker and Overlord. I say maybe because they feature what I know this is a controversial statement, but what I believe to be the worst vehicle in the history of video games. You have to use the Hammerhead, which is this floating vehicle where it floats all over the place. You can't even stand still in the thing. It'll just float off. And you have to do platforming in this. Platforming over pits of molten lava and through the cold and get through all these obstacles and enemies. And it has no armor. It can be easily taken down by a machine gun. It's supposed to be an infantry fighting vehicle. But unlike the Mako, if you find yourself in trouble in it, you can't heal it. There is no health bar that tells you exactly how much health you were. You just get an annoying beeping noise and your thing bursts into flames before exploding. It can be taken down by a single guy with a machine gun that you didn't see him by the time you turn around. Your missiles are dumbfire. Your weapons are dumbfire on it. There is no reason why you would take this thing into combat. And you have to go over, and you have to play Frogger on pits of molten lava, only it's not top down. No, it's behind the vehicle, so it makes it really difficult to make the jumps. You know those stupid 3D Frogger games they tried on the PlayStation and stuff when they were trying to turn them into the next Mario? Think everything bad about them times 1,000. That's what you go through with the Hammerhead. That said, there are good story elements in Overlord. So it's a maybe for me. And if you can get used to the Hammerhead, fine. But in all my years playing it, I've never gotten used to the Hammerhead. I still dread doing those missions. I do them because I'm a completionist, so I have to do them, but really, your mileage will vary on whether or not you can stand this stuff. And on the just skip it front, Normandy crash site. All you do is go down to the crash site of the original Normandy, collect a bunch of stuff, see a couple of flashbacks, and it has no real reward except 128 measly experience points, a thank you note from the Alliance, and you don't even get to talk to your former squad mates who were on the Normandy at the time it exploded about what happened. You get a trinket for your bedroom. That's pretty much what it boils down to. So I say, with them charging, I think it's $7.50 for this, and no dialogue in it at all, and only one real character moment, which you find in the data log somewhere, this isn't worth your money. Stay away from it. It is just not worth it. It is obviously just thrown together to be there. If it had come as part of a base game, I would have accepted it. If it had just come as part of the base game near the beginning, but as is, with them charging money, not worth it. One other thing. For someone like me with movement disorders, hacking minigames are awful. The hacking minigames that you get in this are awful. I don't mind them when there's money, or when it's just money or some random extra lock behind them, but sometimes you'll get to a door that you have to hack to continue the game, and the game can't continue without it. And I've gotten stuck and had to go away for days waiting for my hands to get steady enough to do this. Thankfully, if you go on Nexus Mods, you can easily find a mod that you just drop into the game files, and it automatically completes them for you. Get that mod if you're using the PC version. You'll thank me. But yeah, overall, an amazing sequel with just one piece of with just a few things that cause it to fall short. And it may seem odd that I'm giving this a higher rating than my favorite game of the series, but it has dated better, but it's just the lack of the only thing holding it back is some of the RPG elements that have been stripped away and take away your feeling of being in control on the battlefield. However, most of the DLC is great, and the game builds up perfectly to the most perfect climax in the history of gaming. Next, we'll talk about how BioWare followed this up, and how EA took what would have been a perfect trilogy and left it a little tarnished, and what can be done to restore the luster to that when I talk about Mass Effect 3.